Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join us as we explore the rugged landscapes, uncover hidden historical gems, and dive deep into the rich legends and culture of this iconic region. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on the latest desert adventures. Please leave a like or comment. This is very helpful. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. What if the most valuable discovery of your life was something you kicked away in frustration? In the rugged mountains of Arizona Territory, an elderly prospector stumbling through the gathering dusk did exactly that, hurling what may have been a fortune in gold down a mountainside, never to be seen again. This is no tall tale or prospector's fancy. This is the story of the lost bean pot placer, a tale of accidental discovery, colonial ambition, indigenous resistance, and perhaps even supernatural intervention. A story where history, folklore, and the unforgiving desert landscape of the American Southwest collide. Welcome to Southwest Desert. I'm your host, Alan, and today we're uncovering the remarkable story behind one of Arizona's most intriguing lost treasures. Our story begins with George Sears, an aging desert rat with decades of prospecting experience in the Ajo and Gunsight regions of Arizona. Like many solitary prospectors, Sears lived a simple life, forever searching for that one strike that would make his fortune. One evening, while returning to camp with firewood gathered from the lower section of a ridge west of what would later become the modern mining town of Ajo, Sears stumbled in the growing darkness. His knees scraped against sharp rocks as he fell over a partially buried object. Cursing his misfortune, he examined what had tripped him, a rusty iron pot with two handles protruding from the rocky ground. In a moment of pain-fueled rage, Sears yanked the pot from the earth and hurled it down the mountainside, where it disappeared into a patch of squaw tea bushes. He thought nothing more of it, continuing to his camp to nurse his skinned knees. Years would pass before he understood the significance of what he'd discarded so carelessly. A container potentially filled with placer gold, connected to a fascinating chapter of local history that had been preserved in indigenous oral tradition. To understand the significance of Sears' discovery, we need to travel back in time to the early settlement of the Ajo region by the Papago tribe, known today as the Tohono O'odham. The Papago established villages near natural resources, particularly near mining areas rich in minerals. Their economic activities centered around placer gold mining in local arroyos, where natural erosion processes had concentrated gold from copper ore deposits. They supplemented this mining with hunting on surrounding plains, developing a sustainable resource management system. The Papago developed trade relations with Mexican settlements to the south. Under Mexican territorial control, they would make annual trading expeditions to Caborca in the Altar District, bartering their gold directly for supplies. These well-established trade routes and relationships had functioned for generations. This system worked well until Mexican colonial authorities learned of the gold source through these trade interactions. Seeing an opportunity for resource acquisition, they mobilized a force of 500 men for a year-long operation, provisioning them extensively for the long journey to this remote location. Their objectives were clear: territory acquisition, resource control, and displacement of the indigenous Papago. When the Mexican force arrived, the Papago, characterized in historical accounts as gentle people avoiding conflict, responded with non-violent withdrawal rather than armed resistance. They faced overwhelming Mexican numerical and technological superiority and chose to retreat into the surrounding hills. The Mexican forces established a camp near the mining areas and began operations. Over 5 to 6 months, they successfully extracted significant gold reserves from the same placers the Papago had worked for generations. For a time, it seemed their expedition had achieved its objectives completely. But history has a way of introducing unexpected twists. As the Mexican miners continued their operations, a large band of Apache warriors with their families was traveling from the Gulf of Mexico region toward the Superstition Mountains. Their purpose was seasonal resource gathering, specifically the harvesting of saguaro cactus fruit. The entire band was mounted on horseback, warriors, women, and children alike. When the Apache encountered the Mexican mining camp, the outcome was swift and decisive. The Mexicans, caught by surprise and with inadequate defensive preparations, mounted what historical accounts call a stiff fight, but their resistance gradually collapsed under the Apache assault. In their hasty retreat, the Mexican miners took only moments to bury their accumulated gold in a common kitchen item, a bean pot, before fleeing. They abandoned their dead comrades, supplies, and equipment, making first for the Sonoita River some 35 miles south and eventually returning to Caborca. The mining claims were permanently abandoned. Throughout these events, the Papago had been silently observing from the surrounding hills. They analyzed the changing power dynamics and recognized both an opportunity in the Mexican defeat and a threat in the Apache presence. Historical enmity existed between the Papago and Apache nations, and the Papago knew they needed to act strategically. The Apache were well armed with long bows, arrow quivers, and tomahawk close combat weapons, plus the advantage of mounted cavalry. The Papago, by contrast, appeared to have only conventional forces without significant armaments, but they possessed something the historical record describes in unusual terms: a secret spiritual weapon system wielded by their medicine man. The Papago had faith in supernatural intervention and trusted in their medicine man's powers. He carried a mysterious powder in a buckskin sack, believed to have the ability to control weather phenomena. This knowledge had been protected by the tribe for generations. What happened next blends empirical history with elements that some might consider supernatural. The Papago chief gave a silent hand signal, establishing perfect discipline among his warriors. As they prepared to confront the Apache, the medicine man performed a ritual, dispersing the powder from his buckskin pouch. At that exact moment, the entire Papago force released a synchronized war cry, creating immediate psychological impact on the Apache. Historical accounts describe what followed as remarkable. A funnel-shaped whirlwind appeared in the eastern sky and moved westward toward the Apache position. The whirlwind uprooted trees, flattened smaller vegetation, and created visual and auditory terror as it approached. The Apache warriors, stationed along an elevated ridge and silhouetted against the sky, found themselves in a vulnerable position. Their women and children were similarly exposed. Confronted by both the approaching Papago warriors and this destructive natural phenomenon, the Apache experienced what can only be described as fear. Their horses panicked and stampeded, unseating women and children from their mounts and creating logistical difficulties for withdrawal. The Papago forces advanced from the south and west, converging with the whirlwind approaching from the east. They maintained continuous war cries and effectively encircled their enemies. The Apache attempted to withdraw while trying to rescue their unseated non-combatants, but the delays proved fatal to their tactical position. The Papago achieved a complete victory. In the immediate aftermath, the Papago returned to their ancestral mining territories and discovered the abandoned Mexican supplies, sufficient resources to sustain them for nearly a year. However, they never recovered the Mexican gold cache. The Bean Pot burial site was lost to history, creating the connection to George Sears' chance discovery years later. The Papago commemorated this dual victory over both the Mexicans and Apache with an annual festival at Moivavi village, which translates to many wells. This celebration preserved their tribal historical memory. The sacred powder remained under the guardianship of successive medicine men, maintaining readiness for future defense and creating an unbroken chain of cultural knowledge that would eventually help archaeologists validate aspects of Sears' account. This remarkable story sits at the intersection of several historical threads. Archaeologically, it connects physical evidence, the bean pot Sears discovered, with oral tradition. Economically, it illustrates the evolution of resource extraction in the region, from indigenous practices to colonial mining, predating the later development of the copper industry that would define Ajo's modern existence. Perhaps most importantly, it captures the dynamic cultural intersections that define the American Southwest. So what became of George Sears and his accidental discovery? Historical records tell us he eventually shared his story with others, but despite numerous attempts, neither he nor subsequent treasure hunters ever relocated the discarded bean pot. It remains lost somewhere on that ridge west of Ajo, potentially still filled with the gold that sparked so much conflict and change. The story of the lost bean pot placer reminds us that history is rarely simple. It's layered with perspective, belief, coincidence, and consequence. Sometimes the most valuable discoveries are made accidentally, and sometimes the greatest treasures are literally kicked away in moments of frustration. Imagine finding a fortune in silver ore gleaming in the desert sun, only to walk away and never be able to find it again. Not once, but 4 times in the last century, different men have stumbled upon what might be one of the richest undiscovered silver deposits in the American Southwest, and every single one of them lost it. Welcome to Southwest Desert, the channel that uncovers the forgotten treasures and legends of the American Southwest frontier. Today, we explore the tantalizing tale of the lost silver ledge of the Trejo Mountains, a vein of silver so rich that the few who've seen it claim it rivals the legendary Silver Clip Mine, a bonanza that produced over $1 million in just 4 years during the 1880s, before those riches slipped like sand through the fingers of the man who discovered it. The year was 1880, and the harsh Arizona desert near the Colorado River was drawing prospectors with dreams of striking it rich. Among them was José María Mendivil, a Mexican prospector who would experience both incredible luck and crushing misfortune within the unforgiving landscape of the Trejo Mountains. While exploring an unnamed mountain slope about 30 miles north of Yuma, Mendivil made the discovery of a lifetime. There, scattered down the hillside like discarded slag, lay chunks of silver ore so abundant they could be gathered by hand. This extraordinary find would become known as the Silver Clip Mine, the greatest lead silver producer ever worked along the Colorado River. Between 1883 and 1887, the Silver Clip unleashed a flood of ore worth more than $1 million, an astonishing sum for that era. But here's where the story takes its first ironic turn. Despite discovering this magnificent treasure, Mendivil himself never profited from it. According to local legend and the testimony of his grandson Mike Mendivil, José María received a mere $200 for what would become a $1 million mine. But there's another layer to this tale of missed opportunity. While Mendivil was still at the clip, fate dangled an even greater prize before him, one that would become the stuff of whispered legend among desert wanderers for generations to come. According to old-timers along the Colorado River, somewhere north of the Silver Clip, hidden among the maze of ridges, canyons, buttes, and washes, lies another silver vein, one said to be even richer than the famous clip. It's a ledge so elusive that despite being discovered at least 4 times over the past century, no one has been able to relocate it after walking away. Mendeville's brush with this second treasure came when a Mexican prospector camping at the clip lost his burro. After tracking the animal through the rugged terrain, the man returned with ore samples that looked promising. The two men struck a deal. Mendeville would pay for an assay, and if the samples proved valuable, they would return together to file claims. The assay confirmed what they suspected. The rock was incredibly rich in silver. But by the time Mendeville received the results, the prospector had vanished, following the siren call of distant ridges. No one knew where he had gone or even who he was. Without guidance, Mendeville realized that searching for the silver ledge in that wilderness would likely be futile. Meanwhile, business affairs at Papago, a settlement across the Colorado and California, demanded his attention. Mendeville was prominent there, owning gold properties and the town site itself, which had been developed on his homestead. With too many irons in the fire, he made a fateful decision. A mine operator named Hubbard, one of Arizona's great mine developers of that era, approached Mendeville about the silver clip. The worth of the claim had not yet been proven, and Mendeville was too busy to develop it himself. In what would prove to be a grand but costly gesture, Mendeville simply told Hubbard to take the clip, suggesting they might later discuss an exchange for San Diego waterfront properties. Hubbard didn't hesitate. By 1883, he had proven that the ledge extended more than 150 feet vertically and was at least 300 feet long. Its width, all high-value ore, measured between 18 and 27 feet. The lead silver ore was so accessible that just 4 men could extract 50 tons daily. At the Colorado River, 7 miles from the mine, Hubbard constructed a 10-stamp mill on a mesa at the mouth of Clipwash. He established a freighting road across the brutal terrain, and soon ore wagons thundered daily along the twisting miles of rock and sand. Each day the mill crushed another 25 tons of clip ore. The silver clip's success sparked a boom throughout the silver district. Mines with names like Black Rock, Red Cloud, Engineer, Emma, and Silver Plume sprang into operation. Yet between 1879 and 1889, the entire district produced only $1,696,000 in silver and lead, and the silver clip alone accounted for $1,110,000 of that total. Hubbard's superintendent at the clip mine was a man the locals called Pennybaker. Married to an indigenous woman, Pennybaker would become the second person to encounter the legendary Lost Ledge. One day, another indigenous man, possibly a relative of Pennybaker's wife, told the superintendent about a big untapped ledge not far north of the camp. Whether out of curiosity or professional interest, Pennybaker allowed himself to be guided to the site. What he found impressed him. He recognized good silver ore when he saw it. But surprisingly, he didn't file a claim or attempt to mine it. According to Ed Rochester, who knew him later, it was likely a matter of professional ethics. As an employee of the clip company, Pennybaker considered his time as belonging to his employer, who might claim rights to any discovery he made while under their employment. Content with his position as mine superintendent, Pennybaker filed the location of the silver ledge away in his mind, planning to return to it when circumstances changed. But years passed, and the high-grade ore in the clip was eventually exhausted. Hubbard purchased the Harquahala mine near Salome and moved his operations there, with Pennybaker remaining as superintendent. When the Harquahala was also worked out, Pennybaker, by then an old man, retired to the California coast. That's when memories of the rich ledge began to haunt him. The vein he'd seen decades earlier had likely grown even richer in his imagination over the years. He returned to Arizona and went to Cibola, by then the nearest inhabited spot to the old Clip mine. With Bert Hart, a local who had known the silver district since childhood, Pennybaker set out to find the ledge. But the landscape had changed. Cloudbursts and flash floods regularly reshaped the desert, and his memory had faded with the passing years. Pennybaker wouldn't accept defeat. He returned from the coast several more times, each expedition taking him into different territory. Each time the vein eluded him. Finally, he gave up and never returned. The third man known to have seen the ledge was Santiago Lopez, a prominent cattleman of the region during the late 19th century. When driving cattle to Yuma, Lopez followed a trail that took him through a pass in low hills just north of Clip Mountain, then into a basin at the head of a west branch of Yuma Wash. Somewhere in this area, while moving his herd, Lopez stumbled upon the Great Silver Ledge. Even a brief examination excited him, but he had to get his cattle to market. He vowed to return and stake his claim, but when he did, the ledge had vanished into the landscape. Though he searched each time he used the old trail, he never found it again. The fourth confirmed sighting came from Julian Parra, son of Felisario Parra, who discovered the rich mesquite diggings in California's Chocolate Mountains. A lifelong prospector in the Colorado River country, Parra was following the old cattle trail on horseback when he found the silver ledge. Recognizing its value, he placed a small monument upon it to mark his discovery, then continued his journey. When he returned, neither the ledge nor his monument could be found. For the rest of his days, he hunted for it, telling his sons it was richer than the famous Clip. In 1951, a prospector named Earl Kerr decided to hunt for the ledge, convinced that combining all the accounts narrowed down the search area significantly. With companions George Converse and Sumner Farrar, he ventured into the rugged terrain. On Christmas Day of that year, Earl announced his triumph to friends. He had found a substantial silver ledge in approximately the right location, with a small, tumbled-down monument on it. The vein stood about 4 feet high, was 15 feet wide, and visible for about 30 feet along a contact between andesite and red granite. Earl took a sample and had it assayed. It showed 2 or 3 ounces of silver per ton and 2 or 3% lead. Not spectacular, but as Earl pointed out, it was just a grab sample, and the vein had potential. He planned to return in the spring when the weather cooled to properly prospect the site. But fate intervened. Earl died suddenly before he could make the return trip. His companion George never saw the actual ledge. Earl had discovered it while exploring a short, narrow canyon alone, rejoining George afterward with samples in hand. A storm that night forced their hasty departure, and the exact location of Earl's discovery remains yet another chapter in the mystery of the lost silver ledge. Today, those who might seek this elusive treasure face additional challenges. Much of the area now lies within the Army's Yuma Test Station, a military reservation of nearly 1 million acres. The Clip mine itself sits either at the edge of the reservation or in its buffer zone, and the lost ledge is likely in a similar position. If you would like to contribute to my channel, join my Patreon community and discover my art print products on my website in the links provided in my description. Also, if you would like a particular image from my videos, give the timestamp for the image, and I will upload it to my website and Patreon. Thank you. Imagine millions in gold and silver coins glimmering in a crystal-clear Texas spring, a fortune untouched for over 2 centuries, protected by seemingly bottomless depths. This is the legend of the lost bottomless pit treasure, where in 1803, a desperate captain sacrificed a king's ransom rather than surrender it to bandits. Welcome to Southwest Desert, where today we explore one of the most compelling lost treasure stories in American history. Northeast of the Rio Grande in Dimmitt County lies the Grand Rock Waterhole, hidden among rugged hills northwest of Carrizo Springs. This marvel presented travelers with an oval-shaped body of exceptionally clear water never successfully plumbed to its bottom. The spring served as a natural resting place for countless travelers. Indigenous tribes, Mexican traders, and Anglo settlers recognized its strategic importance on routes through arid South Texas. The flat ground surrounding the spring provided ideal camping conditions, while the mysterious waters offered reliable refreshment in an otherwise harsh landscape. Archaeological evidence spanning generations bears witness to these visitors. What makes this spring truly special isn't just its mysterious depths, it's the fortune rumored to lie beneath. According to legend, resting at the bottom are 30 mule loads of treasure, gold coins, silver pieces, and bullion worth several million in early 19th century terms. Today, the value would be astronomical. This was a carefully planned capital transfer from Mexico City to San Antonio in 1803, when Texas remained Mexican territory. San Antonio was emerging as a commercial hub, with growing wealth among Spanish and Mexican elites creating demand for banking and business development. This shipment represented a significant investment in northern settlements, intended to stimulate economic growth in the frontier regions. In early summer 1803, a special mission departed Mexico City with 30 mules carrying precious cargo. The Mexican government assigned 50 well-armed soldiers as escort, equipped with period muskets and sabers. Multiple civilian drivers skilled in handling pack animals joined the expedition, along with guides familiar with the challenging northern territories. Command fell to Captain Palacio Flores, an ambitious officer with powerful family connections, including ties to General Santa Anna. For Flores, successful delivery meant significant career advancement. The expedition initially progressed smoothly through central Mexico, following established roads through the eastern highlands and making regular stops in significant cities. Everything changed when they crossed the Rio Grande 50 miles upstream from Laredo. Entering South Texas meant difficult terrain, sparse population, and increased danger. Shortly after crossing, mysterious riders began observing the pack train from a distance. Initially just a few observers, their numbers grew to approximately 30 as they encroached closer, suggesting coordinated surveillance rather than simple curiosity. Captain Flores implemented heightened security during their first night after crossing. Guards were doubled, the treasure arranged defensively, and all soldiers maintained vigilant watch as they continued their journey. Following Pina Creek as a natural guide, the expedition reached Grand Rock Waterhole on the second day after crossing. Flores established camp with strategic considerations. Treasure packs were stockpiled centrally near the spring for protection, while soldier quarters and animal areas were arranged to optimize defense while providing necessary rest. After an uneventful first night at the spring, Flores made a catastrophic error in judgment. Perhaps growing overconfident, he reduced security measures. Extra sentries were no longer posted, guard rotation returned to normal protocols, and general vigilance relaxed. His reasoning was flawed. He believed the threat had disappeared and overestimated his military escort's deterrent effect. Complacency replaced caution with deadly consequences. The bandit attack came during breakfast preparation. Using multiple attack vectors from adjacent ravines, the raiders exploited the element of surprise to devastating effect. The first wave caused immediate casualties among unprepared soldiers, creating confusion throughout the camp. Flores responded rapidly to the initial attack. Assessing the chaotic situation, he recognized the serious threat and implemented immediate countermeasures. He organized musketeers into defensive formation, established a skirmish line, and prepared for combat. But facing overwhelming odds, Flores made a decision that would secure this story's place in history. Recognizing possible defeat and determined to deny the bandits their prize, he issued an emergency order: throw all treasure packs into the bottomless spring. This preservation strategy was implemented immediately. Even as battle raged around them, soldiers and drivers began throwing the weighted packs into the water. Pack after pack disappeared beneath the crystal surface until all 30 mule loads were submerged. The strategic thinking revealed Flores's dedication to his mission. Preventing bandits from seizing the treasure became his primary goal, even above survival. He assumed recovery would be possible later with reinforcements, a prioritization both heroic and tragic. With the treasure secured in the depths of the spring, Flores joined the direct combat, personally wielding his saber in front line, fighting and leading by example in their desperate situation. The final bandit charge employed overwhelming force. Attacking from multiple directions, they completely collapsed the Mexican position. Captain Flores fell in combat, removing command structure and triggering complete breakdown of resistance. Panic ensued as survivors fled in all directions. The victorious bandits methodically hunted escapees, resulting in high casualties. In the captured camp, bandits celebrated their success. But the true prize, the fortune in gold and silver, remained hidden beneath the spring waters, its secret kept by the dead. All the dead except one. Alejandro Lajero, an elderly driver with previous wilderness experience, demonstrated remarkable quick thinking during the crisis. Finding concealment in nearby trees, he remained motionless throughout the massacre and subsequent bandit celebration. Patiently waiting until nightfall, he began his escape under cover of darkness. What followed was an arduous journey to San Antonio. Traveling on foot through hostile territory, Lajero endured hunger, thirst, and exhaustion, driven by the importance of his eyewitness testimony. Upon reaching San Antonio nearly starved, authorities assessed the credibility of his account, attempted verification, and documented his testimony for official records. His detailed report included a description of the attack, information about the treasure's disposition in the spring, and crucial location details that would later prove valuable. Military authorities, civilian officials, and financial stakeholders deliberated regarding recovery. Several factors weighed against immediate action: fear of continued bandit strength, limited military resources available, and uncertain prospects given the mysterious bottomless spring. The decision emerged for a delayed response, a temporary postponement with intention to reassess later. This lack of firm commitment would prove fatal to retrieval chances. Over time, urgency diminished as competing priorities emerged. Changes in personnel and leadership led to fading institutional memory. The historical event gradually transitioned into local legend, transmitted orally with inevitable embellishment, before being incorporated into regional folklore. Nearly 90 years later, a San Antonio newspaper reporter made a remarkable discovery through archival research. Uncovering documents that provided verification of the original event, the journalist established connections to the 1803 tragedy. Research traced the treasure's rightful ownership, examining banking entities involved and clarifying government interests in the original shipment. Genealogical investigation tracked descendants of original stakeholders and verified legitimate heirs. This culminated in a stakeholder coalition with legal rights to recovery. Their expedition included descendants with legal claims and support personnel equipped with the best technology available at the time. Navigation posed significant challenges, with the landscape changed considerably after 90 years. Eventually, they confirmed the correct location by matching geographical features to descriptions. The discovery of human remains, Likely bones from the 1803 massacre provided confirmation. Multiple attempts to reach the bottom followed. Probing with poles proved unsuccessful. Swimming exploration reached impressive depths, but failed to locate the treasure. In a final effort, they engineered a weighted line system, assembling hundreds of feet of rope for measurement. The careful lowering process yielded astonishing results. The line continued descending without reaching bottom despite its extensive length. The treasure remained safe in its watery vault, protected by the mysterious depths of the Grand Rock waterhole. Today, conflicting accounts surround the spring's condition. Some claim natural changes have caused it to dry up completely. Environmental theories propose flooding events causing silting, creek changes affecting the waterhole, or possible human intervention altering the watercourse. Some treasure hunters believe modern technology will eventually reveal what lies at the bottom. Others suggest the spring might connect to subterranean river systems, potentially dispersing the treasure through hidden waterways. Welcome to Southwest Desert. I'm your host, Alan, and today we're venturing into the scorching heart of California's Colorado Desert, where for over a century, fortune seekers have vanished into the shimmering heat waves, chasing what might be the deadliest mirage in American history. Imagine finding 3 small hills crowned with black rocks that glitter with gold when the sun hits them just right. Now imagine that this discovery has sent dozens of men to their graves, their bones bleaching under the merciless desert sun. This is the legacy of Thomas L. Smith, better known as Pegleg, perhaps the West's most successful con man, or perhaps its most unfortunate prospector. The story begins in New England, where Thomas L. Smith was born, the brother of legendary frontiersman Jedediah Strong Smith, who blazed the trail from the Great Salt Lake Valley to the Pacific Ocean. While Jedediah became one of America's greatest explorers, Thomas carved out a very different legacy. Despite sharing the same bloodline, the brothers' paths never crossed after leaving their family home. While Jedediah methodically mapped the West, Thomas drifted through it like a tumbleweed, leaving chaos in his wake. Thomas Smith first appears in historical records in 1825, when he and a companion named Leduc embarked on a hunting and trapping expedition. After several moves due to hostile receptions from various indigenous groups, they eventually found profitable hunting grounds in Moki territory. By 1836, Smith had made his way to the Great Salt Lake Valley, and it was from here that he set out on the journey that would define his legacy. Traveling with fellow trappers toward California, Smith claimed to have discovered gold-bearing black rocks atop 3 small hills, just a day's journey west of their camp on the Colorado River. This timing is significant. If true, Smith's discovery would have preceded Francisco Lopez's 1842 gold find north of Los Angeles by 6 years, and would have been 12 years before James Marshall's famous discovery that triggered the California gold rush. In other words, Pegleg Smith would have been the first person to discover gold in California. Smith reportedly collected samples but could never relocate the exact spot. Thus was born the legend of the lost Pegleg mine, a tale that would grow to mythic proportions and eventually claim numerous lives. But was there ever a mine at all? James A. Jasper, who served as a San Diego County supervisor representing the area, believed the entire story was fabricated. According to Jasper, who spent over 40 years tracking countless lost mine stories, Smith was nothing more than a dissipated horse thief who had no scruples about sending men to their death in search of non-existent treasure. Whether he found gold or not, Smith appeared in Los Angeles in 1839 with a valuable collection of pelts. After selling his furs, he established a permanent camp at Steamboat Hot Springs in southern Utah, where he took 5 indigenous women as wives and surrounded himself with their relatives. From this base, Smith built a life that blended hunting and trapping with the more dubious practice of rustling livestock from Mexican ranches. The open range provided abundant feed, and Smith's expertise quickly yielded a substantial herd. Those who knew Smith described him as a notorious drinker who became abusive when intoxicated. Yet his reputation extended beyond his domestic troubles. Smith was renowned for his exceptional marksmanship, which made him valuable in tribal conflicts. He strategically offered his services to whichever tribe promised him the largest share of war spoils. It was during one such conflict that Smith reportedly suffered the injury that gave him his nickname. After being struck by a poisoned arrow in the leg, Smith supposedly amputated his own limb using only his belt knife and a meat saw, with the assistance of an indigenous woman. When the wound healed, he crafted a wooden replacement, hence peg leg. When news of the 1848 gold discovery at Coloma reached him, Smith joined the rush to California. In 1851, he partnered with Silas Gaskill on a mining operation along the Middle Fork of the American River. The venture proved surprisingly successful, netting the pair $20,000 in just a few months. When their claim was exhausted, Smith returned to Utah and resumed his former activities, adding stolen horse trading to his repertoire. His business model was uniquely straightforward. Customers who brought a pint of whiskey could have first choice from Smith's inventory of stolen horses, while those offering tobacco or ammunition were granted second pick. In the late 1850s, Smith organized what would become one of many ill-fated expeditions to locate his purported lost mine. Leading a party into the Colorado desert, the group reached the last known water source before entering the desert interior. During the night, the indigenous carriers disappeared with all the supplies. Smith led the remaining party members to San Bernardino, where the group disbanded. Rumors circulated that Smith had orchestrated the entire fiasco, having arranged for his wife's relatives to serve as porters and then instructing them to abscond with the provisions. Whether true or merely gossip, it added another layer to Smith's reputation as an untrustworthy character. The true tragedies associated with the peg leg legend were just beginning. In 1863, a wealthy San Francisco man named McGuire claimed to have found the lost mine, presenting rich quartz specimens as evidence. Leading a party of 5 adventurers from San Francisco, McGuire's group was last seen alive at the San Felipe Ranch. Months later, a prospector discovered their bleached bones partially buried in the sand. In the 1880s, the Breedlove Party from San Diego, 3 men, attempted to locate the elusive mine. When they failed to return as scheduled, a search party was dispatched. The rescuers found the prospectors' remains just a few miles north of the Mexican border. In a cruel twist of fate, the men had apparently lost their way, panicked, and wandered in circles, discarding their clothing in a heat-induced frenzy before succumbing to thirst and exposure within sight of the Yuha Spring where plentiful water awaited. This devastating incident should have served as a stark warning, but the allure of Pegleg's gold proved too powerful. A prominent Riverside resident named Coover became fixated on the lost mine story and made numerous expeditions into the desert. In 1886, Coover ventured out and never returned. Despite a substantial reward offered for the recovery of his remains and extensive search efforts, no trace of him was ever found. The list of tragedies connected to the peg-leg myth forms a grim testament to human greed and gullibility. But was there ever any gold at all? Jasper became convinced that Smith's story was a complete fabrication, a tale deliberately concocted to secure free drinks in saloons where a good lost mine story was worth a round or two. According to this theory, Smith played his cruel game without remorse, knowingly sending credulous prospectors to their deaths in pursuit of non-existent riches. If true, the body count attributed to Smith's deception would make him one of the most lethal con artists in American history. Smith's final days were shrouded in mystery. On his deathbed, he gathered his wives and informed them that all arrangements for his body had been made. When death finally claimed him, 3 strangers arrived to collect his remains. No one, not even his wives, knew who these men were or what became of Smith's body. It was a fitting end for a man who entered history through a haze of uncertainty and exited in the same manner, leaving behind only questions and a deadly legacy that continues to lure the unwary into the desert's embrace. The Colorado Desert remains one of the most inhospitable environments in North America. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Water sources are scarce and often unreliable. The terrain is disorienting, with landmarks that appear deceptively similar. Even today, with GPS technology and modern equipment, people perish in these badlands. Now imagine entering this hellscape in the 19th century, equipped with nothing but a canteen, basic provisions, and a treasure map sketched from a drunk man's tale. The odds of survival, let alone success, would be vanishingly small. Yet still they came. The pull of Pegleg's gold has proven as enduring as it is deadly. Every year, modern prospectors venture into the Colorado Desert, convinced they will be the ones to finally uncover the 3 hills with black rocks that glitter gold in the sunlight. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Pegleg Smith story is not whether the gold existed, but what the legend reveals about human nature. The allure of sudden wealth, the willingness to risk everything on the slimmest chance of success, the belief that we can succeed where others have failed. These are the true constants in the Pegleg narrative. Thank you for joining your desert frontiersman Alan for another Southwest Gold story. Check out my large catalog of Southwest videos and playlists on historical tales, legends, lost gold stories, and adult bedtime stories. If you like a certain image from my videos, tell me in comments and give timestamp. Happy trails. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.